Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Glue Guys podcast, episode 9 now. I got to be candid, all right? Before I do that, Chad, why don't you holler at the people who
What's
know how
going
you're
on,
doing?
everybody? I think what Ethan's about to talk about is an indictment on myself. So just buckle up real quick.
I wasn't going to mention any names, but somebody didn't wasn't able to upload their episode 9 from last week because this is a redo of the episode 9. We recorded a whole episode last week. There was some technical difficulties on Chad's end, which means basically, if the pattern's going to continue, that there's probably going to be some technical difficulties on my end this week because there had been like the previous 2 weeks. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Stuff happens. Still early. Still the Trace McSorley
Yeah.
episode. All right. It's the Trace McSorley episodes, the Gabby Jesus episode, all that. Just legendary
Matt
number
Judon on the
nines. Uh,
Patriots.
um, I'm trying to think of who wears the 9 shirt for Spurs. The Richarlison episode. Some might say.
Man, I'll be honest with you. I know we're not hitting Spurs at all right today, but Brennan Johnson has been on a heater lately. But Spurs fans, careful with the comments. I saw some Brennan Johnson versus Saka stuff the other day. I was like, come on, do better. And I'm not even an Arsenal fan.
I'll die on the hill that Brennan Johnson's not good. So
Well, just,
you know what I call Brennan Johnson now? Miguel Almiron. I'll
no,
just leave that
I'll
there.
say this: he's a right-sided version of Marcus Rashford, I think, and just not as good of a player, not as good of a player either, obviously, but like a guy who the only thing he's really going to bring to the team is finishing. Like, so if he's
So he's
yeah,
only scoring, and if he's not scoring, then he's
yeah,
literally not
exactly.
playing a part
So
at
he's
all.
basically playing an inside
I
forward.
love that.
So he's scoring right now, so he's looking good. But still, Spurs fans, be careful.
Yeah, inside forward, that's a right footer on the right side. So that's normally the recipe for
He's
success.
making it work. I think he's like five in
Um,
his last five. So.
yeah. So last week we kind of, I guess, experimented with it and kind of had a little test run of format where we kind of just want to have a little bit more of a free flowing conversation. Me and Chad just kind of got some bullet points. Just kind of want to see where the conversation may take us. Thought it was something a little bit more fresh than just going segment by segment by segment. Maybe bring up some cooler topics, have some more
Yeah.
candid like topics for us to talk about, better talking points, but. I did want to start off with an idea that Chad actually texted me with this week. We're talking about the NBA top 5. All right, the top 5 players in the league, and how it's going to evolve over the next decade or so. So right now, I had kind of 6. I know it's top 5, but I kind of had 6 guys that people throw into their top 5, and I think these are really the only 5 guys right now that any knowledgeable basketball fan probably has in their top 5, and that would be Luka, SGA, Jason Tatum, Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid. I think those are the 5 guys that people would have in their top 5. I mean, your boy, who was it? Your boy Zach Lowe the other day said that Joel Embiid might be the best player in the league when he's healthy.
He
So,
did. By the way, RIP to Zach Lowe at ESPN.
yeah, really, that was huge. But I mean, he actually talks about basketball and not everything
That's
except
why he got
basketball. So we knew
fired.
that was a recipe for. Yeah, that was a recipe for disaster. That was a kiss of death for him when he tried to bring basketball into a basketball topic on ESPN. Um, so yeah, kind of those 5 guys, and
No,
kind of I think the reason that
no
Chad wanted.
consideration for Bronny James.
I mean, no joke. In this document, it says potential next guys: Ant, Wemby, and Bronny. So that's what I put. I think, and I forgot one too. Actually, THT before he gets traded. Because I had me and Chad always joke, about the year and a half range where it was like, hey man, they could
Like
get
he
some
could be
for
the
THT,
centerpiece of a trade
Taylor Horton
package.
Tucker. Yeah, it's like, man, I don't know. They could get Donovan Mitchell for like Taylor Horton
Yeah.
Tucker in a first.
I know I'm not the only
What?
one who vividly remembers the visuals of a trade package between the Lakers and the Sixers where it was like, could you trade THT for Ben Simmons? And granted, this is when Ben Simmons was at rock bottom after that Atlanta series, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I think you could still end up getting. I still think you could have done better than THT as the centerpiece.
And then he ended up getting traded for James
Yeah,
Harden.
yeah,
So
exactly. So
it was like, do we trade him for THT or James
Horton
Harden? We
Tucker
don't know,
was
man.
the Roddy Boubois of like a decade later, decade after the fact.
Well, well, it was like I was listening actually to some Bill Simmons this week, and it was like talking about Jermaine
Yeah,
O'Neal
yeah, yeah.
early
Portland,
in his career. Is like where the prospect and the asset part of him was way more valuable than what he actually was
100%.
as a player. Jermaine O'Neal luckily ended up being an actual really good player in the NBA, but a lot of times that works out where it's like, oh, well, we have Darko. You can have Darko if you want. He's still a great prospect. Oh, we have Taylor Horton Tucker. You can have him. He's a great prospect. So, since it was kind of your topic and your idea, why don't you kind of walk us through your thought process? Because I believe kind of why you brought this up is because all the guys mentioned are under 30. And so, kind of seeing what's happened with guys like KD and Steph and LeBron, is this the time where you can just be top 10 in the league for the next 10 years and no one really breaks into that? So why don't you kind of take the floor and kind of tell us what your thought
Yeah, so I
process
guess to
was?
start off, really, I'll go backwards, and you did a great job summarizing, kind of that first group of guys. I think those six that you mentioned, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid. Yeah,
That are
yeah.
all
Like you can
top five
argue,
guys, even though
right?
obviously
Yeah,
there's
you can
only
argue
five.
any of
Yeah,
them as like, hey, this dude's top five in the league. Obviously there are going to be those people who are still telling you Curry's the best player in the NBA, LeBron's the best player in the NBA, KD's the best player in the NBA. I don't think. Yeah,
doesn't really do
exactly.
much.
Like they're still
Yeah.
obviously great. Anybody would want them, but like, come on, let's be realistic. And that's why I actually wanted to start off by looking backwards, kind of at the recent history of the top five, kind of like the guys who we would say for the better part of the late 2010s to, last couple years, depending on the guy, are kind of like the guys. Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
last 10
exactly.
years,
The
kind of.
guys who you would think
Yeah.
of as the top five guys in the league. So I had, and this is not in order because obviously we know Braun's the best. Well, okay, we'll just go Braun, who I think entered that top five conversation probably around that 05-06 season, his third year in the league. He comes in second in the MVP race. He has that series against Washington. Talk to me.
Which just very, very, very quickly, I
Yeah.
wanted to interject. I've seen a lot of old LeBron stuff, and it was kind of crazy the amount of disrespect he was getting, because how great he was because people were like, oh yeah, he hasn't won a title,
Yeah,
so
he'd
he's
be
not in
like,
my top five. Okay, cool. Who's your top five? Melo, Dirk, and
yeah, and
it's
by
like
the way,
what?
Braun was like
Okay,
20 at the
sorry. Go
time when
on.
people were saying this. So
Yeah,
it's like, all right.
exactly.
And granted, I understand he didn't win his first title until, age 27 in Miami. But the argument you're talking about is like, I mean, yeah, there are people. Look, LeBron versus Melo. People like for the
Was a
first two
real
years of their
debate.
NBA
Yeah.
careers, I think people had a serious conversation about that. And look, me and you talk about it all the time. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was a part of those conversations because in '05, I was literally 8 years old. So while I was watching some games and I remember him breaking my heart in that '06 Wizards Cavs series, I'm not going to sit here and say I remember what those debates were like, but they were definitely happening. So Braun, he was in starting '05, '06. I think for him, it really ended in that 21-22 season, that first Westbrook year where he had started. He had the ankle injury in 2020, 2021 season. Kind of hobbled him through the playoffs. They lose to Phoenix, and then they make the Westbrook trade that next year, and they're just not as good. So I think that's when Braun really kind of got out of that group. Steph, kind of the next guy in there. it's
Him, it kind of
it's
happened all
crazy.
at once. Like, it was literally just like on a dime in that 2014-15 season. It was just like, oh, I guess this is one of the
100%.
five. Because before it was like, oh, cool, young up and coming guard, and then it was like, oh, Steph's
Yeah.
the best
And
guard
and
in
we'll
the
talk
league
about this
now.
more like when we get into like the current top five, but that's the thing that's crazy about it. Like for me and probably a lot of people, though, like you don't just get into the top five off of like, man, DeMar DeRozan's having a hell of a season. It's like you got to put
Yeah.
like 2 or 3, like really probably about 2 years worth of like, man, this dude is really awesome work in kind of before you even get into that conversation. So, but like you said with Steph, it was, I mean, look, everyone knew Steph was good. He was a guy anybody would have wanted before that. But like, he took himself to that next level. And like you said, it happened very, very quickly for him. So that was a huge point. You know, do you know how old Steph is? He's going into
36.
his 16th season. Like I'm looking at all these
Yeah.
guys. I mean, they're all now. Granted, they're all from the past 10 years, in their prime. So obviously they're all a bit older, but still, like LeBron. I mean, obviously we get beaten over the head with it. 39 years old, year 22. The next guy I'm going to talk about, KD. He's 36, going into his 17th season. So it's just crazy. And KD, he probably entered the top 10. I had him around that '09, 2010 range, and kind of getting out probably at the end of not this past season, but 2 years ago, when Phoenix just got annihilated by Denver in that second round. He had gotten traded, and then this year I think it was confirmed that he's just not in the top five anymore. Still a great player, like I said, still a guy anybody would want, but when we get into that top five, that's the whole point, right? The conversation is a little bit tougher.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Just again to kind of I got not cover Chad's butt, but if people are going to come in with the hate comments, it's like this doesn't mean like
Yeah,
oh he's not top five. People say that all the time. It's like dude, there's
yeah,
only five guys. Like
it's
you have to be one of the five best guys. Saying that someone's eighth best in the NBA isn't being like he sucks or he's washed or he's not LeBron or KD anymore. It's like it's just there are seven guys better than him. I'm not saying that he's not great and he's not a guy that everyone would want, but he's just not one of the five best
yeah,
guys
it's
in the
the
league.
epitome of the Kobe conversation for me, where people are like, "Oh my God, you have him seventh all time," which kill me in the comments. Go ahead, that's fine. Oh my God, you have him seventh all time, and then like I'll say some positive stuff about him. You're like, bro, you think Kobe sucks? I'm like, dude, I have him seventh of like 10,000 guys that have played in the NBA. So how does that? I don't know how that made him suck. I was just thinking of Kobe because I was watching. There's this Twitter page I came across, or sorry, X page that I came across the other day.
All right, Des.
It's called Throwback Hoops, and it just has like the highlight clips from old games. And I was watching some from Kobe, like, and I just ended up watching like four games in a row. And of course, it's those highlight clips that we talk about all the time, where it's like, in any 2 minute clip, any guy can look like a problem. But these are like, hey, I know
Yeah,
what these guys actually were, and then they have highlights like these. So like watching some of the
so it's
watching
more
some of the old
genuine.
Shaq ones were
Yeah,
just stupid. Where it's like, how was this dude not the greatest player in NBA history? It was like, well, because he just didn't care enough. But yeah, he was unstoppable. Um, the other two guys that I had in there quickly, Kawhi and James Harden, their runs were a little bit shorter. I had about 5 seasons, give or take, for each of them. Harden, kind of in that 2014-15 range, going through 2020. Kawhi, kind of the season after 2015-16. He finishes second in MVP that year, leads the Spurs to 60 plus wins. They make I think the Western Conference Finals that year, lose to Golden State. And then all the way through the 2020-2021 season, where they go out with the bubble, obviously pretty embarrassingly. That next season, Kawhi is really good, but gets hurt at the end of the season, and then misses the whole next year. So that's kind of where it ended for him. You're making a face right now. Is that some research you're doing that's jumping at you, or what's going on?
well, I didn't know he averaged freaking 30 in their title run. Averaged
No.
39
Yeah.
and 4 assists with a block a game, and was shooting like getting to the line 9 times, shooting 88%. Like
Yeah.
these numbers are like outrageous. Because I still am a fairly casual basketball fan, so it's not like I'm watching game by game. But I remember the conversations after he won that title is everyone that was like in sports media, not like social media, not these people, but like actual in sports media. Everyone was like, "Yeah, Kawhi's the best player in the league," and I was kind of like we were saying earlier. It's like I don't know if you can judge
Yeah.
that off
One run.
one really
Yeah.
great playoff run, but then it was like, oh no, it wasn't just one really great playoff run. It was like one playoff run where he took where he made Kyle Lowry and Van
Champions.
Vliet. It's like, yeah, this is the best. This is one of the best backcourts in the league when it's just Kyle Lowry and Van Vliet. So, yeah, I mean that's incredible. I mean, even that year he was 26 and 26, 7, 3 assists. Not as many assists
Yeah,
as I was maybe expecting. It seemed like he became a
yeah,
facilitator a little bit later because the next year he averaged 5 assists, 5
absolutely.
assists. But yeah, I mean those playoff games when you get to the fourth quarter and it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
there you go, best player. Just run the offense for the next 12 minutes,
exactly.
please, and
No,
help us win the
it's
game.
insane because like his, and we with the current guys in the top five, it's interesting to look at like kind of their career trajectory and how they got to where they are because you've got some unusual stories, but like Kawhi is right up there with like all of a sudden, like the other guys, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, get a bit older, and Kawhi goes from being like a spot up 3 and D guy to all of a sudden he finishes second and third in MVP in back to back years. Like,
I say in a 3 year span, he goes from averaging 13 a game to averaging 16 a game and winning
yeah,
DPOY,
yeah.
first team all defense. And then the next year, he's second in MVP, All NBA first team all defense, All Star, Defensive Player of the Year, and 10th in most improved. And the only reason he probably didn't win that was
Already
because
good.
he was
Yeah,
already
exactly.
so good that it didn't matter. Yeah, and then that was the year, that last year that he won. That he was second in MVP. They didn't do anything in the playoffs, but that was a very, very
Yeah,
old San
kind of like the
Antonio
last
team that it
iteration
was
of
just
that
like,
era of the Spurs, basically.
yeah, it was like the last, kind of the last, like Duncan Ginobili is still on that team. They got Andre Miller
Jeez.
still on that team, who I didn't even know was alive. Tony Parker was still on that team. They had
Yeah,
David
so just a
West on
bunch of
that team.
veterans.
Rasul Butler,
All right,
Boris
dude.
Diaw, LaMarcus Aldridge is still pretty
Yeah, for
good at
sure.
this point, but just a very, very old
I'll
team
never
that
forget.
just is like, we were
I'll
never
never
going to
forget
win.
real quick seeing, you were saying LaMarcus Aldridge was still probably pretty good. There was a Sports Illustrated cover that year where it was like 4 different teams, and there was like it was like an older veteran and then a young guy who was coming up. So I think Minnesota, there was like KG and Carl Anthony Towns was like an example. So I don't remember the other ones.
I forgot
Yeah,
they re-signed his
when it was
ass.
like 40. But the last one was Tim Duncan and LaMarcus Aldridge. And it was hilarious because it was like Duncan's so old that the guy he's passing on to is like the young guy is a guy who's like 30. So it was just because I mean Aldridge has already had like the other ones like Towns was probably in his second or third year. All the other guys were young. I wish I could remember who it was off the top of my head.
This cover just says the student and the mentor prepare to get schooled, and it's KG and Cat. It might be an article where there's more people in it, but from what I can see, it's just those two, which is still like
Yeah,
insanity.
exactly. So it was hilarious, uh, but that's exactly what it made me think of. So new. Oh, okay. Yeah, Sports Illustrated NBA preview. New blood in the old school. LaMarcus Aldridge, Tim
There we
Duncan.
go.
Oh God. Okay.
Jesus.
This is God. I'm so glad I found these. These are the other people who were in that. Oh, you're gonna love this. You're gonna die. First one. So you've got KG and Carl Anthony Towns, LaMarcus Aldridge, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, and D'Angelo Russell.
Hold on.
And then this is the best one of all time. Like this dude has to be in the running
Hold on. Tell me what team. Tell me what
Miami
team it
Heat. And
is.
I'm going to warn you, the second guy in this has arguably a case to be made as the least talented guy to ever make the Sports Illustrated cover. Yes.
Justice Winslow. Yeah. It was
Justice
gonna be
Winslow
Justice
and D
Winslow.
Wade. So,
Dude, he like like after his first
no,
year, he was like not on the cover of 2K, but he was like
yeah,
in
yeah,
like
yeah,
the intro sequence where it's like
yeah,
Justice Winslow. It's like
yeah.
Justice Winslow.
No,
Like what's going
it's
on?
it's crazy, man. He was like not to bring up Kawhi, but there was like a momentum for whatever weird reason where people were like, yeah, I'm seeing some stuff with him like what Kawhi did. I'm like, what the fuck? What are you seeing?
No, I think he was just kind of the end of that era where it was like if you went to Duke and Kentucky and got picked in the top 10, then you're just
Yeah,
going to be a guy, I guess, for reasons that remain unclear. It's like, oh, Jaleel Okafor, there's no evidence that you can play basketball, but you went to Duke and you, I guess, performed in March Madness, so therefore you're going to be good. Like, Carl, or who's the other? Willie
yeah.
Cauley Stein. Like, you just went to Kentucky and played in March Madness, so I just guess that you're going to be
He
good,
wasn't.
even though there's
Spoiler
no,
alert.
yeah, there's no, there's no evidence that you can
Yeah.
actually play. Although, oh
No,
shit,
I mean,
maybe
I
I'm
mean, he
disrespecting
played.
Willie Cauley Stein. This dude was 13 and
Uh,
7 one year
I mean, if you're
in
the sixth pick and
Sacramento.
that's your highlight, like that's your career year, like come on.
Marvin
No,
Bagley, who
Marvin
apparently is not
Bagley
a
at least
bust.
put up a year where he was 18 a game, I think, and even then, I mean, I'm still not art. I still agree that Bagley is a bust. You're subtweeting your boy Fail. So
Nah, his highest average was his rookie
yeah,
year. It
but
was 15. Marvin
yeah,
Bagley.
I mean, fair enough, fair enough. But getting back to the top five a little bit, just just quickly. Um, so we talked about the guys, you know, Harden, Kawhi, KD, LeBron, Curry. Those are kind of like the older group. Those guys spend an average of about like 11 years in that top five, about 10 years in that top five. And obviously that's skewed, more by LeBron, who was in there for 16 seasons. And even KD, I mean, I have for 13 years. So like those are serious, you would say outliers, but you think about it like, could like a Jokic or a Giannis be in the same group of as KD when they retire? Absolutely, that's possible. So I'm not going to sit here
Yeah.
and act like they couldn't have just as long of a run. So that brings us into the top five. I say we go. I'll go 1 to 5 just because I think the top is less dramatic. Um, just to kind of build up some suspense going towards the bottom half. And then I know there are some guys that you're going to want to argue about, so we can definitely do that. My number one guy, I have Jokic. He's just, he's the best player in the NBA. I know he got knocked out in the second round last year. I still thought he was tremendous in that Timberwolves series, even though they did give him problems, no doubt about it. Didn't think his efficiency was there as much, in the mid range. So, but still, I mean, 3 MVPs last 4 seasons, like 6 straight years he's been first or second team All NBA. 5 straight top five MVP finishes. Like this dude is amazing, and I've got him only in his fifth year being as a top five guy. So 29 years old, entering his 10th season. Do you have any qualms with Jokic at number one?
I was about to say, I think there are at least two or three guys that you don't really have to
Yeah,
read through their resume. It's just like, I mean, it's Jokic. Like, you saw him almost beat the Avengers with like creative players all around him in the Olympics. So it's like there's not really much
yeah.
else
Was
you can
that
say.
was that what they were calling that team, the Avengers? Remember, we were talking
Well,
about this the other day on the
I
phone.
remember Noah Lyles assembled the Avengers, but I don't really remember. If you guys in the comments know, like that, if they because there was like the Dream Team and the Redeem Team. If you guys know what like this 2024 Olympic team is supposed to be called, then please let us know because I'm
Yeah,
always intrigued by
we were
that
tr-
kind
we
of
were talking
stuff.
about it the other day. Couldn't remember it. So, but yeah, moving right along. As you said, there are a couple guys you really don't have to read off the resume. Giannis is the next one. He's still only 29. Also, is crazy. This is his seventh season already in the top five, and I do just want to read his resume quickly because I think like it's it,
He
it,
gets
it really
lost.
does. Like there's a there's a real
Yeah.
argument. Like is he? He's not as far from Durant, I think, as a lot of people would think. I'll say that. 2 MVPs, one championship, one Finals MVP, 6 straight first team All NBAs the last 6 seasons. And then he was second team the 2 years before that, and 6 straight top five MVP finishes the last 6 years. He's gone first, fourth, third, third, fourth the last 6 years. So he's been just a lock top four guy for like over half a decade. And I don't see any reason why that's going to fall off. Obviously the Milwaukee team is getting a little bit weird with the age. Brooke Lopez kind of getting to the end. Chris Middleton is at the end. I feel like more because of injury, but I just think he's at the end. And then Dame is getting there too. You're making that face again.
Wait, he shot 61% from the field last year?
Yeah.
Because I saw that. I was like, is this like a playoff series where he played 3 games or something? No, this is the entire season. This dude went 30 and 11 with 11.5 boards with 6.5 assists, shooting 61% from the field. And by the way, those 30 points, he probably should have an extra 2 or 3, but this dude literally can't hit free throws.
Except in Game 6 against Phoenix.
That's kind of like the LeBron. I'm like 1 year away from like putting that in my LeBron argument and being like, sure, this dude actually could average 33, but he just couldn't.
No, that's exactly But then it's like, he couldn't make free throws because he didn't have mental toughness or some shit like that. And it's like, all right.
And then I'm gonna spin it back on Jordan. I'd be like, dude could average 40 if he could just hit a damn 3.
You know what's funny though? I find myself not having. And maybe it's just because the ages we are and the people we hang around, I'm just not having that many Jordan versus LeBron arguments. I'm having way more Kobe arguments, which is way more disrespectful to LeBron. But at the same time, I just think it's happening way more. So,
yeah. I mean, I definitely don't disagree
but,
with that.
So, those are my top 2. I've kind of got them in a separate category, basically.
Tier.
Yeah. Third, I've got Luka. Luka's in his 7th season. He's been first team All-NBA the last 5 years.
He's in his 6th.
He's played 6 full seasons. He's had 5 straight first team All-NBAs. Cool. That's why I like doing this exercise, because you looked at those 3 guys. Like, those 3 are kind of the end of where it gets to like stupid, with the resume already. And look, we're not saying stupid in comparison to like the greatest players in NBA history, of course. I think I told you, Giannis, the 6 straight first teams, Luka, the 5 straight. I was doing some research before the pod. Do you know who has the record for the most consecutive first team All NBAs, and how many do you think it is?
Kareem?
It's a good guess. But unfortunately, I'm looking at my phone just to make sure. Kareem was not the most. Damn, he didn't even make 5 straight. He didn't even have a period where he made 5 straight. No, first place would be LeBron James, tied with. Who do you think? He's a forward.
Jordan? Oh no, not Jordan, because he quit. He was so competitive. A forward. Oh, Tim
Karl
Duncan.
Malone. LeBron and Karl Malone, 11 straight. 11 straight.
So Karl Malone falls in this weird category where he was really great, and then he continued to be really, really good in the time where the NBA was just absolute dog shit. So
probably 2 or 3 of those are like, hey.
You kind of would just like look around and be like, well, shit, there's no one else to put there. Karl Malone, who was still,
he was still
again,
good.
I'm not,
he was still good.
Going against him, still very good, but it was just like, well, hell, there's no one challenging him. Like this dude, Kevin Garnett's like 15. Tim Duncan's still kind of coming into his own, so we don't know. I mean, shit, this dude won MVP at 35.
Yeah, I think he's the oldest MVP in NBA history. I'm pretty sure. I think I saw that.
Well, for the next 9 months.
Until LeBron wins.
Yeah. Chad said off the pod, he was like, hey, even NBA athletes want to look cool in front of their kids. So Chad's kind of slightly predicting like a LeBron slight bump year where he.
I'm telling you, I think I'm borderline just gonna say fuck it and just be a Lakers fan this season. Not even just LeBron. I'm watching preseason highlights and I'm thinking, man, Dalton Connect's looking like a real contributor off the bench. Bron, this conversation we had about Bron that we were just talking about. I think whatever whatever extra he has available, like he's gonna try and summon it this season. Like whatever he can do to have the best season he can this year, I think he's gonna do. Just because,
I would love just very quick. I would love to see like a LeBron like
yeah,
39-7 year, and he wins MVP, and they go out in like a hard fought
yeah,
second
absolutely,
round loss, and then he just holds the basketball, just walking off the court like, hey, even though my team didn't win,
yeah,
I'm still that dude, and just I'm out. I played with my son. I won
yeah. It's
MVP.
it's
I'm
so
out.
weird. Like I don't even, you know, I, I,
Let's get Cena in
I
on this when we're talking about how much longer
yeah,
LeBron's
yeah,
gonna play.
exactly. I'm telling you, I might be getting her a jersey this year for Christmas or something. That was great. But I struggle to realize, like, LeBron, while I said like, he hasn't been in the top five for a couple years, he's still, like, easily top 15, borderline top 10 even. So, like, can someone really retire? Like, could he actually retire as, like, a top 10 guy? And look, I just think it'll be weird to ever even see him below that level. So maybe he's saying, let me get out. It's crazy to say at year 40, let me get out before, a year too early instead of a year too late. But
That's what Jamie Carragher said, man. Leave the football before the football
yeah, who
leaves
was
you.
that he was talking about when he said that?
I swear he's talking about like Casemiro, which makes it even
Yeah,
funnier.
the football has left his the football has left him. We'll talk about him probably a little bit later. Um, but yeah, so I am optimistic about the Lakers this season. I think LeBron could have a good year in him. I don't even remember what had, but yeah, just talking about could he add to his legacy, and that'd be more fun. But wrapping up the top five: Jokic, Giannis, Luca, and then the two new guys on the block, basically, kind of really only entered in the last season or two. Jason Tatum and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I have at 4 and 5. I have Tatum fourth, or Gilgeous-Alexander fifth.
Say Alexander
Yeah,
Walker would be a crazy ass addition.
he's seventh. He's seventh. So I know that's kind of where most of your qualms are going to be. So let me just tee you off. Hit me with the Tatum argument.
Well, I just don't like him personally. I just never. He is one of those guys where he kind of falls to me in like kind of that Embiid type of camp where it's like he's really really good, and there's no denying that. Again, when we're splitting hairs on guys that are top five, like to
Yeah.
me, it's just like, is this guy just going to take over and be that guy consistently every single game of every single round of an entire 4 round playoff run and win a title, not on his own, but as clearly the lead guy? And I know these things can get kind of weird, and I know Chad's been on a mission to retroactively give Steph some more Finals MVPs. So, trying to say that those things either don't matter or can at least be skewed in weird ways, which they can. But like Jason Tatum not winning like conference Finals MVP or not Finals MVP, and it's like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're a top five guy, no matter how good of teammates you have, I just feel like you're going to be the best player on the court. You got to be the best player on the court every single game. And even though I don't think this guy is there yet, I mean, even Anthony Edwards is like, no one is mistaken. Like, oh shit, who's better, him or Karl Anthony Towns on this playoff run? Like even when Steph was at his best, and even with KD, I think people that really knew basketball were like, yeah, this is still Steph's team, and he's still the best player. And I just think when you get into those upper echelons, all these other guys, you're not like going round to round and being like, damn, who's more important, Giannis or Chris Middleton? Like, damn, who's more important? Who's more important, SGA or Chet? Man, I don't know. Night to night, I don't know. And I just think when you get to that level, no matter who your teammates are, you just are the number one guy. Just simple as that. And I just think that Jason Tatum just has guys on his own team that night to night either carry the load or take over. And to me, that just, again, still great, still definitely top 8, but just not that like last echelon of being a top 5 guy for me right
It's
this
fair.
second.
It's fair. I just think, to me, if you're specifically comparing him to Edwards, I just think Tatum has, and this is weird because like the word resume, it always is like, what is that actually?
And I'm not even saying that, just very quickly, I'm not even saying that Ant
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
better
No,
than
no,
him.
no.
I'm
Just
just
using
saying,
Ant
like,
as an example. especially for the argument that you
Correct.
were looking at. I think Ant is the epitome of no matter what, no one's going to get confused of like another guy being the reason the Timberwolves are doing something, and that's
Right.
pre Ant or pre Carl Anthony Towns trade, and obviously now even more so. But I think the main differentiator between Tatum and like the other guys that I have in that next group is Tatum has the best resume by far of any of them. He's been doing it the
Oh yeah.
longest. He's been in the NBA 7 full seasons, has made the conference finals 5 times at least. Has made at least
Did he
yeah,
make it his
yeah,
rookie year,
and
right?
I know you'll say a lot of people be like, oh, rookie year, like he clearly couldn't have, but no, like he was borderline the reason they were making it, and his numbers were not as I don't. Now we're used to guys like, oh man, if you're the number one reason, you're putting up 25 to 28 a game. I think he was probably around 18 to 20 in the playoffs that year, so he wasn't.
Yep. 18, 4, and
Yeah,
3, which is not like insane numbers, but still very, very, very good
yeah,
for a 19-year
exactly.
old.
So obviously now he's at a different, level at than he was then, but still I think you could say he was a top two guy on all five of those conference finals teams. So making a huge impact every single time. And then when you talk about the being better series to series, it's funny. We just said Steph, it kind of happened all at once in that 14-15 season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I think the 15-16, or no, yeah, it was the 14-15. Yeah, they won the 15 title. Sorry. That
Because I don't really remember who won that 2016 title, but I feel like that team was probably
you don't
pretty good.
remember this? You don't remember that shot? But
Everyone does. That's why
probably looked a
LeBron's
little
not the
bit
GOAT.
cleaner coming out of Kyrie's hands than mine just there. But yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Hell no.
Thank you. But even Steph in that
Hell
in
no.
that 14-15 season, like he didn't win Finals MVP, but we all knew who was the best player on that team. Um, yeah,
AD.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's one of those, and Steph has this in the same way Tatum does, where there's like I feel like there are just weird conversations about him. Like Steph, when he was kind of coming up into that group, there were some weird conversations about, man, how good is he? How much of a
It was like
yeah,
fake news. It was like, oh, Steph just won the title. It's like,
yeah,
no, he didn't.
yeah,
No, he didn't. It's like, no, I watched
yeah.
it.
But
I
it,
was
but it was
there.
like, man, Steph's good, but like, is he really that? There was a long conversation. Probably, I mean, honestly, 2, 3 good years of that, and I think Tatum is in that same category, but for a different reason. I think for Tatum, it's because we've kind of seen him at this stage for a while, but we haven't seen him really delivering the way he has, I think, in the past 3 seasons. So,
Well, and even just having those seasons where it's just like he's by far and away
yeah,
the MVP
yeah,
guy. Like because even Giannis and Jokic before they were winning titles, like you would just look up in like 2019 or whatever. When did Jokic win his first MVP?
2020 in the 2021
Yeah,
season.
2020, yeah, 21. Yeah, you just looked up in 2021. You were like, no, he's
Yeah,
just had the best season. Like, I don't really know if he's the best player, but he's definitely by far had the best season. Same thing the next year. Giannis was the same way just before him. It was just like, Giannis probably isn't the best player in the league. He's probably not going to win the title, but he's just by
yeah,
far had the best season. Like, he just put up 30. Jesus. Like, this dude averaged 30, 13, and 6. Like, it just, you can't go against that. And that's like even I feel like doing one or the other is kind of a way for you to break into that top five. It's either you're winning a whole bunch of not a whole bunch, but like you're consistently winning like Jason Tatum has, and you're always the best guy. You're either doing that or you're just having these seasons where it's like even Joel Embiid, where it's like, okay, no, Embiid's just been the best
right.
player in the league this year. Oh, Jokic has just been the best player in the this year. Giannis, though, I mean, Embiid's come nowhere close to a title. And then Giannis and Jokic were put in those conversations before they won titles because they've had those seasons. And so when they won their title, it was like kind of the culmination of it. It's like, see, everyone knew they were
Yeah,
a top five guy, and now we have the
absolutely.
confirmation of it. Whereas with Tatum, it was just kind of like we know he's
Yeah,
really
it didn't
good,
like cement
and then
him.
he won the title, and correct. Then he won the title, and then everyone was just kind of like, I mean, we know he's really good, and we know we won the title, but it wasn't really even like quote
Yeah,
unquote his
no,
title.
exactly. No, that's completely fair. It is because, like you said, Giannis. I mean, everyone wanted him as a top five guy, no doubt about it. But then when he wins that title in the 2021 season, it's like, all right, Giannis is the best player in the league immediately, right? And then Jokic wins the title the next,
Yeah.
or 2 years later, sorry. And it's like Jokic is the best player in the league, no doubt about it. So it is,
Everyone always
yeah.
kind of has that cue of like this guy we know
And,
is
and
really
I
good. He
think
just needs to do that one thing.
going back to last season, if the Mavericks had beaten the Celtics in the finals, I think that would have happened to Luka. It would have been like, all right, now he's the best
Yep.
player in the league. So, which would have been a really weird thing for it to like change hands 3 times in like a 5-year span. But I think this is what
5. I feel like it would have changed hands
4
3
years,
times
yeah.
in like 3 years. It was like clearly Giannis, then clearly Jokic, and then if that would happen, then clearly
Yeah,
Luka.
in a 4 year
Quote, unquote,
4 year span, yeah, that would have been weird. But it also
Yeah.
is like it epitomizes that we're in this kind of like open period of the NBA where there's not like, I mean, there's no dynasties in the NBA right now. There's not like a team that has multiple championship runs. I mean, shoot, honestly, the closest thing to a group with multiple championship runs is Boston, probably. They're the only.
I mean, the last repeat champion was the
Yeah,
freaking Warriors.
exactly.
KD.
So I think it's 6 different champions, and
That was
6
6
different
years ago,
champions in
yeah.
the last 6 years. So, it's. I mean, look, the Warriors had their dynasty, obviously, but they're not in that era anymore. They're on the guys are on the tail end of it.
Even their last title wasn't even
Yeah,
really part
exactly.
of that
It was really a whole
dynasty.
different team.
It was more part of like an isolated, not incident, but
Yeah,
isolated.
yeah, exactly. So we're in a period where with teams, there's not like those solidified teams. And I also think players that can kind of lend itself to a little bit more movement too, which I think brings us to SGA, who really broke into that top five, I think, for me firmly this past season. He finishes second in MVP, first team All NBA, leads the Thunder to the 1 seed. He's averaging, I mean, every great player nowadays is averaging 25, and that's another conversation we can have about just, if you're the best,
What
yeah,
does it
right.
even
But
mean?
like when you're doing it on a 1 seed and you're averaging, I mean, 30 on 50. Yeah, he's averaging 30 a game the last 2 years on over 50% from the field each season. Like at the as we say, at
As
the
a
guard
guard.
spot, that's insane. So, and I know he does most of his work in the mid range and driving and stuff, but still, I mean, that is still really great efficiency for someone playing the way he does. So,
But even shooting 35% from
yeah,
three
no,
isn't bad.
yeah, as we say,
by
he just
any
doesn't
stretch
take
of the
them. He just
imagination.
doesn't really take them that much for as we talk about a lead creator on a playoff team. But in that,
Just quickly. Do you think that is something that's going to hold him and in turn the Thunder back if he can't have a reliable jump
I don't
shot?
think so because they're able to space it. The rest of the guys, and I think that's what makes Chet so important is that he's able to really space it as a 5. Now, I will say now they added Hardenstein and Caruso, who Hardenstein obviously not a
Right.
shooter at all. Caruso, I think people have kind of overestimated how good his jumper is. I feel like he's fine, but he's not like a guy who you're closing out hard on in playoff games. Yeah,
He's just white, so it's like this
You
dude
know
must
about
be
that.
able to shoot.
Hey, don't let him shoot.
Although 41% last year, not taking a ton, taking 5 a game, but 41% from 3 last
Fair
year.
enough. Fair enough. That's way better than I would have thought. That's definitely way better than I would have thought. But I think the Thunder have done a good enough job in all the spots around SGA to space it so that they're able to leave him as like the one non-shooter. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like how Milwaukee did it with Giannis in the early years, where like, Brook Lopez shooting threes, Mirotic is up there shooting threes, Bobby Portis, like
Drew improved
100%.
on his shooting so he could
100%.
play that role.
Yeah,
Chris
so all
Middleton.
those other guys are spacing it while the one not quote unquote non-shooter is kind of the guy initiating everything. So I think it makes sense for the Thunder.
I don't know if you heard, by the way, but Giannis has been he's been working on his jumper this summer.
I don't
Him and
wanna
Ben
see-
Simmons. I saw a clip
I
of him
don't-
making two.
I don't want to see Giannis shooting threes. I just don't. Like he's devastating around the rim. I mean, you just talked about it, 61% from the field this year. Like I don't want him to change. Now, look, would I be lying to you if I said I wouldn't feel better about him in the playoffs if he had a semi-reliable three-point shot? I would, but I don't think he's going to get to the point in his career, no matter how much work he does. Like, I mean, the dude's been 27% the last couple of years on like 2 attempts a game. Like, he's not all of a sudden going to be a guy shooting 40% on 7 attempts. So, like, there's no reason to even think about that.
Sorry, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, one of me and Chad's
Yeah.
like ongoing
Just
jokes for years now is like the clip of the yearly clip of Ben Simmons being like
Yeah, I mean, it just came out like two
in
weeks
like
ago, I think it
workouts.
was. The Brooklyn Nets official TikTok put out something where he hit like 4 jumpers, and they weren't even in a row. It was like 2 in one spot, edit, and then 2 in another spot. It's like, so you're telling me he didn't make the third either time? Because there's no way in hell they wouldn't have posted it if he
Yeah.
did. So,
And then Giannis, I remember, I don't think it was this past year, but the year before, it was like people were making a big deal. It's like, yo, I don't think it was threes, but I think it was like, yo, he added an 18.
oh
footer.
yeah,
Like, his
no,
18
I
footer's
remember because
automatic
in
now.
a preseason game, he like took a dribble off the dribble three in the corner and swished it, and all Twitter because it was still Twitter at the time.
It's like, yo,
Yeah,
Giannis with a jump shot.
I think
now.
it was
Like,
probably
it's
the year
over.
after they won the title because that's when everyone was just all in on Giannis. So about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
yeah, it had to be. It was like, watch out! The NBA is already his. He might be illegal, and some shit. And that's like, I don't know why immigration status has to do with it, but yeah. So I don't think Giannis is not going to add it. The best version of that video that you're talking about though was last season. There was a Mitchell Robinson is a problem like workout video where he was shooting step back threes and like
I know
dribbling
exactly what
in
you're
and out
talking
in
about.
transition, dunking on guys, and it was like this dude is like the seventh best player on the Knicks.
I mean, my personal favorite. That's kind of like a cousin of the tweet from like a NFL insider of
Good in camp.
so-and-so's
No.
look good in camp this year.
The camp
Yeah.
MVP. That's something we got to do next year because we'll be perfect timing. Shout out Shador. We'll be we'll be able to do the camp MVP of all 32 teams. Like that. That'll be something great to track because there's one from each team.
Well, I'll retroactively give Joe Milton that
Patriots.
for the
100%.
Patriots because I had to hear for like 3 weeks. And it's like shit. Joe Milton's already better than Drake May. It's like okay. It's like oh shoot, he might take some snaps. Early in the season.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
all right.
There's
Me and him have thrown the same amount of passes. And he's inactive. So
hey man, shout out Joe Milton. So top five, yep, just to wrap it up, Jokic, Giannis, Doncic, Tatum, SGA. I think those are the five guys going into this season. Who's like the one guy or two guys maybe that you think could creep in to that group, maybe getting into next year? Is there anyone standing out for you? Or not creep into it, because as we just established, all these guys are young. They're probably going to be in the top five or around it for the next couple of years. But who's like those guys that can challenge them?
well, I don't know. I think sometimes because when we use the extreme examples like your LeBrons, your KDs, your Stephs, I mean that's three of maybe the top 15
Very
players
true.
of all time, and saying like, oh, these guys had such sustained excellence for all this time. It's like, yeah, but that's not always how the NBA works. Like Clyde Drexler was probably a top 5 guy when he made it to
Yeah.
the NBA Finals. Then all of a sudden, you never heard his name again in like an elite category. So sometimes it just doesn't really happen that way. And like you said, since there's so much talent in the league, it could just be
Yeah.
like a flip flop.
I mean, even Davis,
This
like
guy
Davis
could be
had
that.
2 years where he was probably in that group, and then
Yeah.
now obviously there's no way in hell you would think of him there. Yeah, I mean, even like Kawhi and Harden. Yeah,
I mean, like Harden,
Yeah,
Westbrook,
Westbrook definitely had a
like
year.
those guys were always coming in and out. I mean,
Chris
Paul
Paul,
George was
so
Paul George was like the next guy after
LeBron and KD.
LeBron and KD after that first Eastern Conference Finals
100%.
appearance that he made, and it's just like so. I think it flip flops a lot more than we maybe give it credit for based on those
Okay.
3 guys because they were such
Okay.
great players. But I think the 2 most obvious ones, other than Bronny and THT, would be Ant
Yep.
and Wemby.
100%.
Because I think Ant was he kind of implanted himself in that, not that
Yeah.
top tier, but that top. I guess if it's like a club, like he's invited in the club, but not the
When
VIP section.
when I was talking
Uh,
about kind of having that year and then the next year where you get in
yep.
the top five, like last year for Ant is good enough to be like, okay, this is evidence that if he builds on it, then he could be top five based off of what he did last year and then this season coming up. So I completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah, like last year, it was like you see him in that club, in that top 10 club, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. And then this year, it could easily be the hello, Mr. Edwards. Hello, Mr. Edwards. Here's your seat. We have the bottles coming out for you,
Oh, okay,
sir.
he's getting the
that kind of a
VIP
thing.
treatment when he gets in. Okay.
That's what I mean. So it could be that for this season, but again, I think him and Wemby, just because Wemby, it's going to be harder for him because his team isn't nearly as good as any of these guys, and so, but kind of like I was alluding to with Giannis and Jokic, like it could be a situation, and I'm not expecting this of him. I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying like it's definitely not out of the realm possibility where he's just like, yeah, he was just 27 and 13 with 2 blocks a game and 1 defensive player of the year. So he's just the best player this regular season. Like there's at least
Read
a
off the
legitimate
numbers that you were
possibility
thinking would be like, all right, this will get him in the top five type that you just said.
because that was what he averaged last year. I said like 27-12 with like 2 to 3 blocks
Okay.
a game.
Last year, 21, 11, and 4 blocks. So
That's what
like,
yeah.
not.
So probably
Yeah.
3 or 4 blocks, and you're adding probably like 6 more points. If he had 6 more points, maintains rebounds and blocks, and then they make the playoffs, then that could easily be a season where it's like, oh yeah, I mean Wembanyama's not the best player in the league right now, but he is the MVP, so therefore you kind of have to put him in that
100%.
echelon. That's a very, very real possibility.
I also saw an insane stat.
Because what was
Go ahead.
Jokic?
No, go ahead.
Go on. Wasn't Jokic a 6th seed when he won his
Second,
first MVP
when they won
or
his
something
second one, yeah,
weird
they
like
were
that?
a 6 seed. Yeah,
Yeah. And then Giannis, I think they made the Eastern Conference Finals that year, but I don't think they were like the 1 seed or anything.
I
like
think
that.
the year he won the second one, he was. I think one of the years he was the 1
Yes.
seed, but
But like, there's definitely a precedent set for like you're not close to the best team in the league, but you just had like the best year, so you won MVP. And I think that could be something that could knock Wemby into that
fair enough.
conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw a stupid stat where it was like the top 10 step back shooters in the NBA on step back jumpers off the dribble.
Like
yeah.
statistically, or
No.
like, he nice. Okay.
Yeah, the original Smile was posting them, but but no, it was legitimately statistically like effective field goal percentage on step back jumpers, and Wemby was like 7th in the entire NBA. It's like this dude's 7. Like that's literally the shit we're talking about when we were like, oh, the Giannis when he was hitting the off the dribble jumpers, and people were like, how are you going to stop it? Like Wemby literally has that right now. So I don't need his ceiling is just insane. As we know with Wemby, the only thing is he going to get hurt? And the size that he is, the frame that he has, it's always going to be a concern. So that's like,
I mean, like, if we're being 100% honest, like, I truly don't understand how he did.
yeah,
like
no, it's
13
bullshit.
last
It was
year,
bullshit.
Wemby.
Like 100%.
I
mean, it was because they
I
won
see
20 games, probably.
Sabonis. I see Sabonis, and it's like very. I mean, obviously he was really good. I heard his name so much last year, but it was like he's 19 and 14 and 8, which is really, really good. But it's like this dude was basically defensive player of the year.
He was second.
Wemby, and
He was second.
he was first team all defense. He was second in defensive player of the year, and it was like very, very close between him and Herb Jones.
Go Bear.
No, but it's kind of like crazy that he
at least an all-star.
All NBA.
At least an all-star. Like that.
Well, I could be remembering this wrong, but I think that there was like he wasn't as good before
100%.
the break. So I think
You're 100%
that's what it
right.
was. So the All-Star thing I kind of get, but like by the end of the season, when you see a guy averaging 21 and 11 with, well, like you said, freaking 4 blocks a game, it's like, we need to make room for this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it'll be like one of the Luka things where this his rookie year. I mean, Luca and LeBron really, where his rookie year is the last year where he's not, All Star, All NBA, fourth in
Yeah.
this award, second in this award, all that stuff. So I think starting this season, he's just going to be like he's going to get to know all the All Star cities real well. He's going to see a lot of LA.
Well, that's what I mean. Like it's like for Wemby next year. Like now that we're talking and I'm thinking about, like I'm kind of be shocked if he's not in that tier. Like based on what he did as a 19-year-old. I mean, what are his numbers compared to LeBron's rookie year
LeBron was
numbers? Like
25 and
that
5.
dude.
Yeah, I mean he was, and Cleveland
Yeah,
didn't.
like
They were
it,
better in LeBron's rookie year, but they weren't like good. I don't even think they made the playoffs because that
yeah,
was the whole Melo LeBron talking point.
yeah. They definitely didn't make the playoffs, but it was like, I mean, LeBron was, Jesus Christ, he was 19 MVP his rookie year. But,
LeBron.
but, um, but like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think you would clearly say after year two, like LeBron is one of those guys. His second year, he finished sixth in MVP, was a second team All Star,
Yeah,
all that stuff. Um, and so I don't think there's any reason why Wemby can't just be, especially when
yeah,
you're that good at like that is always going to prop him. Like if it's between him and this guy who has similar numbers, it's like, yeah, well, this dude's averaging 4.5
yep,
blocks now, and literally other teams just don't have layup. They just don't even shoot layups because he's in the
yeah. I
game.
mean,
So
quite honestly, depending on Embiid's health and like how the center position is, there he has a chance to be like second team All NBA this year, like a real chance. So
all right, so let's think. Jokic, Giannis, Luca are definitely going to be on it. Kind of not regardless of what they do, but
they're
like
going to
even
be
if they
on
have a
it.
little
Yeah,
bit of a downturn, they're going to be on it. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, like if SGA, like Tatum, SGA, and Embiid, those guys like still have to have
yeah,
good seasons to be in that, like really good
yeah.
seasons. So it's like
Wemby
there's a
could
chance like
outpace them if
SGA's,
he had a better season.
yeah, like Tatum's production could downturn because he's got like the
Yeah,
hangover of the finals and he was played summer basketball and all this other stuff. I know Wemby did too, but
young.
he's still like
Yeah, exactly. And he
20,
didn't have
and
the
so he's still
playoffs.
hungry to
So
do all that stuff. Correct. So he's still got a big long break, and so there's, I don't like. The more I'm talking myself into it, I guess I am kind of more predicting like Wemby is like going to be considered at least for next season, like during the
yeah.
season while it's playing out, probably going to be considered a top 5 guy. And the only thing that could probably hold him back, two things, is either an injury and his team winning like 30 games. Are
Well,
probably the only things that can hold him back. Which I don't even think his team is going to only
well,
win
shit.
30
Of
games.
course they're not because they have the number one winner in NBA history on their team. So
Oh Jesus. Let's see. Oh, Harrison Barnes.
no, Harrison Barnes has more rings than the ultimate winner who's on this team.
Oh shit, Cliff.
Rice Krispie. Yeah, Chris Paul. I will say, I mean, I expect San Antonio to be slightly better. They, like we said, they actually went out, got real veterans, got Chris Paul, got Harrison Barnes. Like those guys, obviously they're not difference makers, but like if they're average level starters, with Wemby being the guy that we're talking about, like I mean, the West is just so difficult. Like if they were in the East, I would maybe make more of a push to be like, could they be a play-in team? But like in the West, I just don't know. I mean, what teams are we saying they can be better than? Like they're going to be better than.
So you're saying like Zion injury
It would say. I mean, they'll
or
be better than Utah, Portland. Those are the only two like I can guaranteed say they're going to be better than.
for
Yeah, like
sure.
those are the only two I can say they're for sure going to be better than. Could they be better than Sacramento, the Clippers? Yeah,
The
and
Rockets.
and then probably New Orleans probably is the next in that group. So those would be the teams they would hope to be competing against. But even then, if you're the best of that group, that still puts you as the ninth seed. So no, it could be tough. But
Yeah.
like you said, like Wemby, he
Well, to me, that's all he needs
yeah
to
yeah
do to
really
like really get into like if he gets into a playoffs, like, because you can't. There's just something like you can't give like the MVP or a whatever,
Yeah.
like a first team All NBA guy, just because it's like, well, his team finished 12th in the West. It's like, but if you go, oh well, his team at least made the play in and won 38 games, and it's like, oh, okay.
The
well,
one
we can at
exception
least-
being Tracy McGrady, who made second team All NBA on the Magic when they won 22 games, I think. So shout out to T Mac on that one.
I don't really know where I stand on Tracy anymore because it's like you kind of see all sides of the argument. It's like, yeah, well, he was putting up 30 every year, but his team was winning 20 games because they sucked. But he was really good, but he couldn't elevate them at all. But
Yeah,
it was-
exactly.
I don't know.
It's like that perpetual argument of like which one is it, the chicken or the egg? And my bad, they didn't win 20 games that year. They won 21. So I apologize to you, T Mac. 21 and 61. He did lead the league in scoring, averaging 28, 6, and 6. So can't be mad at him. But
Which, by the way, they made the playoffs.
yeah, exactly.
Year,
They'd made it a handful of years before that in Orlando. So one last guy I do want to mention real quickly before we get probably move on to our next subject, our next topic. I think Paolo Banchero is like the one outside shot guy who's like not in that group right now, not even in the waiting room right now, but like a guy who maybe 2 years from now, I won't be surprised. Like me and you obviously talk a lot about that Cleveland Orlando playoff series because you're a Cleveland fan.
I was about to say, I know no one else watched it.
That was the one
really
year I actually
impressed,
locked into
from
the
what I saw.
NBA TV playoff series. But Paolo in that one, 27, 9, and 4 in those 7 games. Like he has way more on-ball creation, way smoother than I ever thought he was going to be in the NBA. He's much more sleeker, even though he's 6'10", 250. Like he moves, like obviously I'm not going to sit here and say he moves like LeBron, but he's like a guy who's a bigger build, but still can move like a lanky, swing man, but then can provide some power too. So I think he's really, really good, and he could be, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe makes that jump kind of into that second team All NBA group also, just because I think Orlando can be a lot better in the East this year. So.
Yeah, it was kind of sad, like seeing him at the end of that series.
He was the only one.
Kind of what I was joking about. I say about Kawhi earlier, but it was literally like Game 6, Game 7. It was literally just like, all right, there's 15 minutes left in this game.
Yeah.
Here you go. I'm going to stand over here, and if you throw it to me, I'm going to miss. But
yeah, because Franz was horrible in that Game 7, and it was like no one else was providing any on-ball creation. And it was like, all right, you're 20, but still, here's the ball, and try and go win us a Game 7 on the road.
And he was doing
Yeah.
it. Like, he was legitimately doing it. Like they were in it the whole time, and it was impressive. I mean, again, because of how quickly the world moves with social media, we kind of underrate how young he still is and how much room he still has to grow. And again, like we said, with like the fluctuation of those top 5 guys, like there's no reason saying that you're not just looking up in February and being like, Paolo's 28. 8-8 and really good shooting,
and Orlando's a 4 seed.
Yeah, and so you kind of just have to shrug your shoulders and be like, "Sorry, SGA, you missed 20 games."
Yeah, exactly. All this is subject to injury, no doubt about it. Injury, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So if you right now had to say the top of the guys that we know of right now, okay. Let's say 5 years from now, okay? It's October of 2029, all right? Who are the top 5 guys in the NBA?
Yeah,
So
Cooper Flag, Bronny James.
Mikey Williams.
So 5 years from now, I got to be honest with you. I would have a hard time not seeing Luka and Wembanyama as like the top 2 guys in the NBA. I don't know what the order is going to be. I would find it very hard to not think that those 2 are going to be the top 2. So them, I still like Jokic and Giannis are still only going to be 34. So I think.
And Jokic's game is probably going to age incredibly.
Doesn't use
because
athleticism
he's
already.
already a fat tub of lard.
Yeah,
anyway.
and Giannis is. like you would think maybe his won't age as smoothly, but he's
Well, he could just turn
yeah,
into
like
like
I
a
was gonna say,
center.
he's still like 7 foot and is an insane at the rim, defender, on ball defender too, and could just turn into like a dominant paint guy. So like
He could be like what Rudy
if he,
would
if
be
he
if
was
he could play
good,
any
yeah.
offense whatsoever.
So
Yeah, like literally, like 10 times a game, we're just gonna throw it down to Giannis, and he's gonna do some weird. I just got around my guy and dunked it or
yeah,
flipped it in, and then on defense, he just stands underneath and does this, which is gonna make him like the most efficient defender. Even if he, and this is only if he loses all of his
right, exactly.
athleticism, which is
Yeah,
probably
I
not
mean,
gonna
like,
happen.
look, we talked about the group of guys before. Like, LeBron is 39, still doing it. Steph is 36, still doing it. KD's 36. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that these guys can still be very, very good. So I'm going to say Luka, Wemby, Giannis, Jokic. Actually, probably better would feel better about Jokic before Giannis. So I'll put Jokic third, Giannis fourth. Um, and then I got to put Anthony Edwards in that fifth spot. I just have to. Yeah,
Really,
I think Tatum and SGA will have a run. They'll have some time, but I don't think
I don't think those are the guys that I was thinking.
who else would be in that fifth. I mean, Alex Sarr will be just outside of them, but who else would you think would be in that group?
Oh shit! I forgot you said
Yeah,
Wemby
no.
first.
Yeah,
I was
sorry,
like,
Wemby's in
I
there.
thought,
Yeah, Wemby
okay,
is in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah. I thought the whole time you were like saying these names, I was like, is he gonna
No,
leave
no, no,
Wemby
no.
off this
Yeah,
top five? But yeah, Anthony Edwards.
Wemby, I
Okay,
got
okay,
it too.
okay, okay.
I got Wemby at 2 or 1,
Yeah,
depending on. I mean, really between him and Luca.
like they're gonna be that top
Yeah,
tier. What you were saying, like about what Jokic and Giannis
absolutely,
are now.
absolutely. So those are the five. Maybe Paolo as the sixth guy in that group. Just in the waiting room. And look, I still think Tatum and SGA will be good. So don't come at me, Boston or Celtics, or Boston or OKC fans.
Yeah. So we thought that'd be a pretty interesting discussion. Obviously, we brought up some other topics within that. I wanted. Where do we want to go? All right, I'll give you your pick.
Uh-oh.
Do you want to talk? Do you want to have no? Let's just do a slight revisit of the QB stock game. All right. So we did the QB
Yeah,
stock game a couple
about a
couple
month
of weeks
ago at this
ago
point.
when we near the yeah when we were starting up the NFL season, talking about quarterbacks that we thought were going to improve basically from last year. So Chad did some calculations about I think it was QBR and wins basically kind of put into
Yeah.
the same metric to provide a stock price for each NFL quarterback based off of last year. And we each picked teams basically saying that this guy's stock based on their QBR and wins is going to be higher than it was last year. And I'll start off with my own team. Well, my first pick was Bryce Young, who got benched. So
Off
so
to a good
that's for
start.
starters. Then I got Herbert, who limped off the field like a
Yeah,
week ago. Jordan Love,
missed three
who
games
dug himself into a 28 as a who missed 3 games and then dug himself to a 28-point hole and then came back and lost.
to Sam Darnold.
Um, yeah, I can't believe I didn't pick Darnold. Anyway, and then Pat Mahomes, who's somehow, some way, has won every game so
Yeah.
far this year, even though his team has looked worse than it ever has. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Because the guys on his team have been in has been in full form.
Oh, the refs. They took preseason real serious for him.
I mean, those first 3 games were like outrageous. The first game wasn't. It was a close call, but it
Yeah,
was a correct call.
100%.
So, but just like the back-to-back weeks with the pass interferences, where it's like, okay, cool, got bailed out on 3rd or 4th down with this pass interference call, and then literally the next week the exact same play happens the other way.
But do you
and it's just
think?
like,
I got to
nah.
say, in the Bengals one, I thought was no doubt about it a pass interference. Like when people do that shit where they're like, "Hey, we got there early. It's not like he meant to hit the guy." It's like that's not the fucking point.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
stupid. But the only thing is I just think that you see that not called so much in that kind of a situation
see,
where it's like,
maybe because maybe that could be part of it, but I actually felt the other way. Like I felt like I had seen that called more, especially at the end of last season and then the first couple of weeks of this year. I felt like I was seeing that called more than like say 2-3 years ago. So I don't know. I don't know.
Fair, yeah. I mean, they definitely have been quicker to throw the flag, but like what kind of culminates it all is like the next week where the corner isn't playing the ball, he doesn't get his head around, and he's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
literally tackling the receiver in the
100%.
end zone, and
Nothing.
it's just like I mean, literally rule one of like trying to tell somebody like what pass interference is like, are they even trying to
Yeah.
look at the ball, locate
And
the
in
ball,
this
play the
chance, in
ball,
this one, the
or
answer
are they
was
just hitting
absolutely
the
not.
guy? It
Yeah,
wasn't even
yeah.
close. It
So I
wasn't
think that's the
even
thing.
close.
Those,
The dude was literally
yeah,
facing the end
the
zone.
two are
And
getting
then,
lumped together, but I think the second one definitely you have way more complaint if you're a Chiefs hater. So, which we know you are. So,
I'm not a Chiefs hater. I'm Bills
oh yeah,
Mafia.
yeah, yeah.
So I've
My
been a
bad, my
Bills
bad.
fan.
Who have looked good. So let me not.
Who just got sprayed by C.J.
Ooh,
Stroud.
fair
So
enough. That sounds dangerous.
and
Yeah,
then Chad's
yeah.
team.
You would think
Okay,
with what Ethan just reeled off for his guys, you'd be like, all right, yeah,
Chad's team
must
must be
be doing
murdering
better than
mine.
that. Nope. I'll go. I did Aaron Rodgers as my first pick. They just lost to the now 5-0 Minnesota Vikings. Um,
And put up how many
17, and
points?
this is a week after putting up, I think, 12 against Denver. So, or no, 9 against Denver, I think it was.
Yeah,
So couldn't
9.
even get to
Yeah,
double digits. Rodgers was complaining about guys not knowing the snap count and all that, which like that was most predictable. If you could have made a bet on how quickly Rodgers was going to throw teammates under the bus, like you would have been able to retire if you said put a money down on within the first month. So Rodgers was my first pick. I believe my second pick was Burrow, who
Burrow.
like I remember we had the conversation of like when we were doing this of like, man, the
They're getting
Bengals
thrown
always
under the
start out
bus.
horribly. Look at their schedule this year. If they don't start out 3-1, then it'll be horrible. They're 1-3. So uh
They're probably gonna lose
Yeah,
today.
Bengals staying on brand with that one insanely. Trevor Lawrence, who the
Has somehow, some way, in the same NFL as Bryce Young and Will Levis, has somehow become the public
oh,
enemy number one as a
100%,
quarterback.
100%. Like people hate. It's probably. I mean, it's definitely because of the contract, right? You saw Levis and Bryce Young; those are just draft picks that have gone wrong. That happens, you know, 10 times out of the first 15 picks every year. So uh,
Yeah.
that is more common. The when you give the guy the 200 million and then he turns into shit, that's more of that Daniel Jones special category of fucking it up. So Brock Osweiler even, which I'm not sitting here saying Lawrence is those guys because I think he's better still, but you got to win at least one fucking
Dude,
game.
I saw the Brock Osweiler contract because when I told you I
Yeah,
saw him
commentating
commentating a college
crazy.
game, and Savannah, I was like, freaking Brock Osweiler. She's like, who's that? I was like, well, this dude got given like a
The
huge
heist
contract for Denver, even though he never
played
like
well.
I don't think he like had played an NFL game like ever
Well,
before that, and they just gave him like 4 for 72.
no, it was Houston that gave him the deal. Houston gave, yeah, he had
Correct,
played
yes,
like half a season on Denver when Manning was
on
like
Denver, yeah,
when depending on the week, his UCL
a
was either
corpse.
fallen off the bone completely or they had like stitched it back on with some masking tape or something.
Yeah, and so he got
Yeah,
that contract, and I thought that it was like 72 million for 4 years, which at that time
insane,
was like an
insane,
outrageous
100%.
contract. And then so Chad went Rodgers, Burrow, T. Law, and then Kyler
I mean,
Murray.
sad to say, but Murray's probably been the best. I was gonna say
Been
he's
the
been
best
the
one.
best, definitely out of the 4 of my picks. You could argue out of the 8 guys picked, he's been, you know, compared to what he was the year before, he's improved the most.
Yeah, as far
Yeah,
as the
yeah,
stock
he's
game
improved.
goes,
Although I
yeah,
don't know stock wise, I didn't do the calculations because Ethan just hit me with this before we started. But I would think his stock price is still pretty low because I think the team's 1-3. So you know, it's difficult. Like that's the thing where the winning part. That's why, like you kicking yourself about Sam Darnold, where he just would have been the perfect pick. But
yeah.
it's. Now it's too late.
Well, I also was this close to picking Daniel Jones, so
You know what? Daniel Jones gets some shit, and he was numbered second bottom in the preseason rankings of this. I saw him look comfortable for about two full games somehow between the Cleveland game and the Washington game. So, not sitting there saying he's the savior, obviously, but somehow he looked good 2 games in a row.
okay. Am I insane for just thinking he's not
No,
horrible?
I mean, like I just said, I don't.
Like every
He's
single time I watch him play, I'm like, this dude's not awful. Like he's definitely not good. I'm not saying that he's like a
yeah.
franchise quarterback and he's
I'll
whatever, but I'm
say
like, this dude's not the
I'll
worst
say
player in
this.
the
Last
league.
year when I watched him, I actually thought he was horrible. Like last year, I was like, this dude is like whatever whatever they need to do to not have him be the starter next year, I would do it. Now I look at it, I'm like, all right, like he's able to set his feet and he looked comfortable, and I know like it's the
The
yeah, I
bare
mean, it's the
minimum shit.
equivalent of when I was watching the United game today, and they were like, "Well, they look decently structured defensively," and it's like, "Fuck, dude!" At 20 minutes in, that's the compliment you have to give out. Like that's the level they're on, and the answer is yes. But, but yeah, like so, I feel like Jones, he's been better than the bare minimum. But I think this all boils back down to what are your expectations for the guy? Because like you said,
Yeah.
when we're looking at Jones, they're like, all right, he's going to take a snap and strangle himself and give it to the other team every play. And when he actually takes a 3-step drop and completes a curl route, we're like, shit, that came out on time. So,
I say a timing route on
yeah,
time, on target, all that type of
exactly.
stuff. It's like, oh shit, good work,
Exactly.
Daniel. Good work, man.
Exactly. God,
Yeah. So the QB stock game this so far this year has been a bust. We're gonna have to do a full revisit either next week or
yeah.
the week after,
Probably
so we
make some
can
changes.
hopefully add
Yeah,
and
we're going to
drop
be
some
making some
players.
changes soon.
Yeah. Just very quickly at the end, I wanted to end off by doing kind of a check in of us, of our favorite
Oh,
teams.
shit.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
So a
Hell yeah.
soccer check in because I don't watch any Real Madrid. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna sit here and lie and pretend that I do.
I got to say for myself,
So Real Madrid season so
for
far.
Arsenal,
Go
real
on.
quick, I did a bad job of watching them the past 2 seasons, but this year I've made a point more to watch them just because. Well, I don't know why, but I just have made a point to watch them a bit more this year. So I'm happy with that. But talking about Real Madrid to start, look, it's been underwhelming. I think everyone kind of understands that. More bad news.
Did they end up
They
winning
did.
yesterday? I
They
saw
looked
they were up
really
1-0 at the
comfortable
half.
against Villarreal in a 2-0 win. Now, the first goal had no business of going in. It was Fede Valverde from 30
Yeah.
yards out. So, and it took a deflection, a slight deflection, but still a slight deflection.
You know it had no business going in
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
don't move. He scored and he just in place was
exactly.
like,
But Vinny did score an amazing. He had an amazing strike. His shooting over the past 18 months has just gone kind of through the roof. Before he was just like a winger who could get the ball to the 18, but then when he got there, it was like, fuck, now he has to shoot it. Damn it. But now he's actually been able to finish those, and he's been. Look, I know you're Vinny. How you feel about him, depending on the day, is volatile. I think would be a good way to put it. But he's been
very.
very, very consistent for us this season. I'm looking at it right now. I think he's like 8 and yeah,
Ooh,
he's
I just
four
saw the
and
goal.
five in 11 starts this year. So in league and Champions League. So
Well, I will say that I think, not last year, but maybe the year before is when people really started talking about him as like an
yep,
actual elite winger. I just feel like most of his goals was like, I'm
yeah,
fast as shit, and I make these incisive, well timed runs, and it gets slipped in, and then it's just a one on one
yeah,
tucked finish. Like based on the goal I just saw, I mean now he's kind of adding that actual finishing to not even finishing, just like a
yeah,
good shooting ability to his game, which is gonna help unlock a lot because you have to know that like you can't. I'll use a different example since I don't want to say this guy yet, but like a Phil Foden, it's like he showed the ability to just like I'm gonna hit this thing 100 miles an hour right into the top bins, and so you have to close me
yeah.
when I'm 25
It's
yards out. And so if Vinny starts to add that to his game, like kind of like a basketball player. It's like, well, shit, he can hit a 30-footer, so now he can drive to the lane a lot easier. Same thing with Vinny potentially, where it's like, well, I actually have to close him from 25 yards out, or else he's going to score. And so now it's going to be easier for him to beat people and create and stuff like that. And so that could make him actually like that player that I've been, I guess, hearing about, but I haven't really seen, especially in things like a Brazil
Yeah,
shirt.
Brazil shirt, he's not good. I would never argue for him in a Brazil shirt, but I also think Brazil are just in a weird period right now where, I mean, if you talk to South Beach Diet, depending on the week, like that dude's ready to just end it all. So I know he's listening right now. So shout out to you, Johnny. We're going through it. Uh-oh.
Hold on. Okay. Good news. Good news for the QB stock game for Chad. T Law just threw a tutty.
Nice. Nice. Let's go. Let's go. But like we just
Yeah.
talked about
So
with Man United and Daniel Jones, if we're to the point where throwing a touchdown is like news breaking announcement now, we understand what period we're at. You know, we understand where we are.
well, to be fair, he just threw like a 75.
Never mind. We're
touchdown,
back.
so.
We're so back. We're so back.
Yeah, so Real Madrid, we talked about Vinny in the game yesterday. Overall, how's it felt this season? You said at the beginning it was a little
Yeah.
underwhelming. What are your overall thoughts?
Look, I think the midfield balance is something that still needs to be worked out. I was talking about this actually the other day with Ryder, funnily enough. But the composition of the midfield, you look at the guys. First off, the sooner Carlo just has the conversation and says, "Hey, Luka Modric, you're just done. Like you've been a hell of a player, like all timer midfielder probably." I'm not as good at my historical stuff, so I don't want to sit here and say he's definitely an all timer, but great midfielder, legend at Real Madrid, so many Champions Leagues, yada da 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 da, won the Ballon d'Or, uh,
Spurs
right,
legend.
all that stuff. But you're not a guy who should be starting in big games anymore for Real Madrid. He doesn't have the legs. He's to the point now where he is so old that his passing is actually starting to go as well, which I think is something that you is not as obvious as the athleticism, but it's actually the other part when you're talking about the all timers, where when that starts to go, that's when you really know it's bad because now they're losing the technical ability. It's like, hey, you're just not good anymore. And look, he's 39.
When
Yeah.
you're 5'8", so when you're 5'8" and you can no longer move and your technical ability is starting to go, then it's kind of like,
Yeah,
what do
so
you
he
have
just
left?
needs to be out of the side immediately. I think the midfield that's played the most and will play the most, the midfield three that'll play the most this year, Chouameni, Valverde, Bellingham, has started to look better. I've seen more of Bellingham on the right-hand side versus the left, which is obviously the side that Vinny, Mbappe, and really Rodrigo all kind of want to play on, is that left-hand side. Saw Bellingham drifting out to the right a lot more, especially in that Villarreal game. So that's bringing more balance. And Chouameni, I want him to be able to play in a role where he has the freedom to be advanced. And right now he just doesn't. He has no freedom to be advanced because Bellingham's going to play borderline as a number 10. Valverde's going to want to be in those inside right channel. He's going to want to attack that area. And so now we are just focused on Chouameni playing as a screener in front of the back four. That's why I think Camavinga coming back is so important for us. It allows us to switch it up, right? Play some more opportunity or play some more time with Camavinga and Chouameni together where they can kind of interchange. It's like which one's truly holding in front of the back four and which one's kind of progressing with the ball a bit. Chouameni, I think, is very lethal in the final third passing more so. He does have a good shot on him, but just doesn't shoot as much. Sorry. He loves to shoot, but he just doesn't shoot on target that much. So he's the new
Yeah.
Joshua Kimmich with that one. So I think it's getting better. Like I said, I really want to see what it looks like in a couple weeks when they fully continue to reintegrate Camavinga into the side. But as I say this, we just lost Danny Carvajal for the season with an ACL injury in the Villarreal game. So how does that?
There goes the Ballon d'Or.
How do you balance that out? Like, obviously, it means Lucas Vasquez is going to be playing every single minute at right back right now, which is scary. I think the backup,
Insanity.
sadly enough, is probably Fede Valverde because he played some spot minutes at right back, I think like 3 years ago for us when he was first kind of bursting onto the scene. When it was another year when Carvajal had a lot of injuries. So that would be something.
You need Odriozola
Well,
back.
I saw reports that we're going to bring in a right back and a left-footed center back in January. So I mean, I don't know. Like, I would be happy, but at the same time, like, what are we talking about? What kind of guy could you bring in who's to the level of a replacement for Carvajal? But then when Carvajal comes back, they're going to understand, like, hey, you might not be a starter every single game. Like, I don't know what right back that
Well,
is.
the leg up that you guys always
Oh
have,
God,
well, it's two things. Number one, the allure of Real Madrid just being like
fair.
people are
They'll
just like,
just show up.
I don't know. I just want to wear that Real Madrid kit
That,
in my career. That's one of my dreams. That's one of the things that I've wanted to, you know. I mean, shit. At this point, it's probably like I grew up watching Carvajal, so I'd love
yeah,
to play for him or
yeah,
with
yeah.
him or whatever. And then the second thing is, which is something interesting that I heard a couple of months ago. It's like the ego of
Yes,
professional players
100%.
that they're like, I don't know, I'm really good, so I don't care when Danny
Yeah.
Carvajal comes back. I'm going to play so well in this 6 months that when next season comes around, I'm just going to still be the
I
guy.
love that point. I love that one because I don't think it's ever talked about enough, but I think it's so accurate. And this is why all the time when we see, like someone will move to a club and we're like, dude,
Why is he
yeah,
moving there?
yeah.
He's
And
never going to
people are like,
play.
guys, I just like the guy just backs himself. Like he just does, and he will every single time because that's why he got to that level.
Especially with a situation like this, where the minutes actually are
No,
there. It's not like
yeah,
Carvajal's
yeah.
fit and
He
he's like
doesn't have to
hoping
break
for those
in. He just
minutes.
has
It's
to
like the
play.
minutes are, the minutes are actually there for him to play. So it's like Carlo. I mean, shit. I'm trying to think of which right back would say no when Carlo comes up to them and be like, "Hey, you have 6 months to prove yourself at Real Madrid, and you're basically the only right back we have."
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
please.
I mean,
Can I
fair.
sign
I
up?
guess I'm just looking at like and maybe this is just more to do with the fact that what is the right back position right now? Because it's really a position where, hey, are you a
Nothing.
center back
Or maybe they start doing the thing that some other elite clubs are doing. Just go, you know what? We're just going to play a center back
the
more.
the only reason why I don't think they would do that is because
It's because you have no center
well
backs.
that too, but the fact that we rely so much on the balance being that right back being able to get up high to get high because whoever is playing on the right wing, usually Rodrigo, is going to want to pinch inside. Like so, we have to have someone who's able to get all the way forward into that right back spot. That's why I think like people have been linking Trent as like because he's a guy we're allegedly going for in the summer on a free because him and the Bellingham connection, obviously, and then the Carvajal replacement. It makes a lot of sense. But I think Trent makes more sense as an inverted type. And look, obviously, I'm not saying they are glued and married to this type of style that they're playing. I'm just saying the way they play now would be more Trent all the way, basically on the touch line on the right hand side. And I just think that limits his impact as a player with his skill set. So, not saying it couldn't happen.
Do you not think that Eder Militao could do that to a certain extent? Like, do you think he's not good enough on the? Because the only reason I say that is because I remember when Arteta started starting Ben White at right back, and it was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then when you're put in those positions, when you already have a great technical base and and you're as athletic as guys like Ben White and Eder Militao are, it's kind of just like, I guess I never really considered it that way, but yeah, I could see Eder Militao getting up and down that right flank, and I mean, shit, he's Brazilian, so being technically good enough to create a little bit and at least just put decent crosses into the box. And then also, he could be that guy that arrives on the back stick when Vinny gets around the corner and he just floats it to the back post, and it's like, oh, they have a 5'7" left back matched up against Eder Militao on the back post. Like, I wonder what's going to happen here.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. I saw him play. He played some right back for us because I think when he first kind of came through with Porto, he was playing some center back and some right back. So he played a little bit of
Mm.
right back for us in the beginning of his career. Maybe just because I haven't seen him in that spot in like 3 or 4 years, like it's hard visually for me to see it. But like, I mean, the case you laid out is a good one. I think the only thing is he's not technical enough in tight spaces. And Madrid, and I think a lot of teams like they find like 10 to 20 times a game. There's like this weird spot where like your right winger, your right back, and your DM, or you're like a right-sided midfielder, are all in like a 5 yard area from each other with three defenders, and it's like,
Hmm.
hey, how are you going to get out of this? Um, and
Right.
and like Carvajal, for whatever reason, somehow always either makes the right pass or wins the foul right on on the sideline that ends up relieving pressure. I don't know if Militao quite has that in his game, but the rest of it, and maybe it's just because he doesn't have the experience because he hasn't been doing it that much recently. So maybe, but at the same time, I would just be more comfortable signing a true right back instead. So I wouldn't be mad. But at the same time, a center back is still a position we need to bring in as well. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still confident that the team will do well, both league and Champions League, because I think there's still more growth in the side. However, the away record is alarming, right? We have one win, 3 draws on the road this year. At home, we've got 5 wins. So we're clearly a team that likes to play in front of our home crowd. And this is in the league, by the way. So we're a team that enjoys the home crowd. We enjoy being at the Bernabeu. Haven't developed that grit, toughness yet that I think is needed to be consistently dominant on the road. Something that like a team like Arsenal, I think, has developed over the past 18 months. So I think we still need to get that. But we'll be good. We'll be fine. I am worried, though, about the league because Barca looks so good. Like, Barca look amazing. They beat the hell out of Alaves today. Lewandowski scored, I think, a first-half hat trick in that game. So he is dominant. They're playing very well under Flick. Flick is a very good manager. And they still don't even have all their guys back and fully fit. Like, I think De Jong just came back. Gavi obviously still hasn't come back. So excited. I mean, not excited as a Real Madrid fan to see what Barca is going to look like, but as a guy who loves soccer, I'm going to be kind of looking forward to watching them when everyone gets healthy. So,
right.
What about Arsenal? Let's flip to them. I think there's probably more optimism from you.
Yeah, well, I tend to shoehorn them into every episode, so I'm gonna try and keep it pretty brief.
Come on, that's not what the people are looking for.
I just love that Bukayo Saka is finally getting his
flowers.
Praise. I mean, I don't know why it took yesterday to finally see that, but like the stuff I was seeing on Twitter was like really it was like very, very, very optimistic about him and like being like, I mean, this dude has 7 assists in the first 7 Premier League games.
Crazy.
Scored the sealing goal yesterday as well, and it's just everyone sees now. Like, I just don't think enough people watch him because when they do, because if you just watch like clips or highlights, it's like, okay, that was a shitty right-footed cross. That was a weird shot. That was it doesn't look as fluid when he's doing his moves or whatever. And it's just seeing the actual production and seeing like how much he's relied on. Especially, I saw a tweet actually that was really funny. It was like, never thought that Bukayo Saka was going to be the Odegaard replacement when he got hurt. Because it was like literally all the creation that Martin Odegaard was doing is now just being taken up by Saka. The actual assists, big chances created, chances from set pieces. All these things are literally, I think he's number 1 in big chances created in the league, number 1 in assists. He might be second in overall chances created, most set piece chances created, like all these different things that he's like leading the league in, all the creation, but then he's also scoring goals. And so I really, really like that. Mikel Merino looked pretty poor, honestly, in the 2 times he's come on. He just hasn't looked up to the pace, which is understandable, fine. Calafiori might be my favorite player on the entire team.
He's been good.
His the way he combats into tackles and headers and stuff, and then also he's just so much better on the ball than I thought he was going to be. Like, there are times where he'll have a guy like 2 yards away from him, they'll just give it to him, and he'll just get out of it and then play like a half switch pass that allows us to release, Bukayo Saka or whoever, Kai Havertz, who's also been incredible. And yeah, it's a lot of optimism, but we've just had weird games these past 2 weeks where it's like Leicester, we're up 2-0 when we're cruising, and then they bring it back, and then we win anyway, and then today or yesterday it was Southampton goes up 1-0 for no reason, and then we come back and we win, and it felt pretty comfortable the whole time, but it's just, I don't know. And this is going to sound both cocky and very glass half empty, but it's like, I've just never been a part of a team, like cheered for a team that was this good before, so I just don't know what this looks like. Like, to me, when I would watch City would be I would just see their highlights. I would just see, oh yeah, they went down 1-0 and then they won 4-1, but it was always in the bag the whole time, I'm sure. Whereas now I'm seeing
Not
it's
that
like,
way.
no, sometimes you just have those days where it's just like, I don't know, we can't score, and then they find something weird and nick it, and then there's like a 50-minute period where it's like, okay, we're losing to a terrible team, and then you just turn it on and it just starts to flow. And as soon as we got Raheem Sterling and Gabby Jesus off the pitch, that's when stuff started happening, which is pretty damning for them, but pretty telling for Arteta, I think. I think Gabby Jesus is just off the pace. I saw another thing that was like, I think the thing that's most telling about our club right now is that we've moved past Zinchenko and Gabby Jesus.
Yeah, they're not even in the squad, really.
Two seasons ago, it was like, man, they are like the whole reason why we progressed to being like a title challenging side, and now they're not even good enough to play for us. Zinchenko hasn't been fit, but when he is fit, he's not a part of that left back discussion. When Gabby Jesus is fit, he's not a part of that. Should we start him up top? I mean, Leandro Trossard's looked much better in
front two,
front two. Which, by the way, we've been playing a 4-4-2 almost this entire season exclusively. People just don't want to recognize it for some reason because it's like Sean Dyche.
Yeah, I was gonna say no one wants to give Dyche any credit.
Yeah, but it's like we've been playing a 4-4-2. If you see us defend, it's two banks of four and then two forwards, and when we attack, we have that attacking midfielder is just playing the 9. Like people are like, oh well, Kai Havertz is the other midfielder. It's
nah,
he's not. Watch where he.
Yeah, he's playing right up there with the center back.
Yes, exactly.
And I've even seen some good stuff from him recently. I think it was the.
Oh yeah.
And look, I'm a Kai Havertz fan, so I don't just mean like in one game he's been okay. But who'd you guys play in the PSG game? He was doing a lot of really nice link up on the right hand side, kind of doing some interchanging with Saka.
Yeah.
So it's just that
getting in those.
Yeah, it's just that fluidity that continued. Like we talk about when you talk about the preseason and stuff with soccer, like the signings are like the headlines and like the transfer window is the headlines, but like the cohesion, the continuing to play together, like hey, are we 2% better this year because we know each other that much more? Because we're at that next level of understanding each other versus these guys we just brought in who were still trying to learn basics of their game. Now we're to that advanced part.
And then it makes it a lot easier
100%.
for those guys because it's like Calafiori is not like, okay, he's not really where they said he was going to be. And so it's like, all right, everyone's where they're supposed to be. I just kind of need to find that next space. Or Mikel told me, he's going to be in that space, he's going to be in that space, so I need to be in this space. And everyone is, so it makes it much easier for you to play in that. And also, I don't want to call it too early, but like Gabby Martinelli back finding some form, it's like our left side last year was kind of vacant because it was like kind of Trossard, but kind of Martinelli, and then Martinelli got hurt, and then Trossard was thrust in that starting role where he did pretty well, but that's not
his
really
game.
What we need from him right now. And so it's like, we've kind of been underrated how many injuries we've had early this year
100%.
Just because we keep winning.
100%.
But it's like Ben White's been out. Jurrien Timber was out yesterday. Alexander Zinchenko, even though I just slagged him off, he's been hurt. Martinelli picked up a knock, and so it's just like Marino got hurt as soon as he signed.
Tomiyasu, I think, has been
Rice
a guy
was
who's
suspended.
been missed also because I think when he's healthy, he kind of continues that trend you guys have had where the physical defenders, even on the fullback spots, but a guy who can still contribute on the ball and in possession.
Well, he's kind of the UNTC shit back for Bethel JV basketball, where it was like you're going offense or defense. And it's like, where it's like, okay, if we're tied or losing, Ben White's going to stay on the pitch, but if we're winning in the 75th minute, Tomiyasu's going to stay on the pitch. Or if Timber gets on a yellow card, or Calafiori, whoever gets on a yellow card, and there's 20, 25 minutes left, we're just going to throw on Tomiyasu because we know he's not going to get booked. He's going to be a good defender. He's not going to lose the ball in stupid positions.
Absolutely.
So, and it's really cool seeing everyone have their role. Like, you clearly know if we're down, this is what's going to happen. If we're up, this is what's going to happen. If the game isn't going according to plan, this is what's going to happen. It's really comforting as a fan to know, like, Mikel's clearly like, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. The only frustrating part is seeing Ethan Nwaneri not get as many minutes as maybe you like. He's 17, I get it, but when you have a young player, a really talented young player coming through, you just want to see
It's
him
tough. It's
play
tough
and
considering
play
the
and play.
team that Arsenal are, the expectations they have, to then just expect to embed youngsters. It's a lot like, is a cross sport comparison, but it's a lot like when James Wiseman came to the Warriors, right? It's like, hey, we don't have time to. Yeah, yeah,
Darko.
exactly. Honestly, I mean, I hope he doesn't end up with the career Darko had, but it's like, this team wants to win the next game. We don't have time to let this 18, in that situation, 17-year-old with Nwaneri's case, that year-old guy who can just come out there and make mistakes and learn and all that stuff. Because that's the thing, you can only learn by making the mistakes that you need to make in games and stuff like that. And in Arsenal, you're just not playing if you're making those mistakes. So it's a difficult spot.
Yeah, and Arsenal's been getting a lot of shit over the past couple of years about like they're not bringing
Yeah.
through youth players and this, that, and the other, and they're not giving youth players chances.
hard.
It's like I must have missed the part where like City gave these insane chances to all these young players. It's like the most talented player they've had probably maybe ever come out of their academy is the only one that's gotten consistent real looks. I mean, shit, Cole Palmer is Cole Palmer, and even he couldn't
Yeah.
get in the team. Like Phil Foden's gotten looks because he's that supreme. He was that supreme of a talent at such a young age. I mean, Pep literally said when he was like 16 or 17, he's the most talented player I've ever worked with at his age.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's Pep. So it's like seeing stuff like that. I mean, I can't think. Oh well, Liam Delap. Yeah, he's not playing for City. Oh, McAtee. Oh yeah, he comes on in like the 900th minute and maybe scores a goal. Oh, Oscar Bobbs. Like yeah, he made like 10 appearances last.
I think
night.
and
stuff through
they
injuries.
just overhype. I think Rico Lewis has been like a nice academy product to come through, but that has more to do with the fact that Kyle Walker is just ass now, more so than like Lewis is like a generational prospect or anything like that.
Well, even that's a perfect example. It's like, man, we need to get Nwaneri more minutes. It's like, I feel like there's someone that plays a right center mid role that we probably need to prioritize giving minutes to. I wonder who that is. Oh, yeah, the best player on our team, Martin Odegaard.
Yeah.
That's where he plays. And then if he's not playing there, then probably Mikel Merino is going to be playing there. And like really, really good players. And so,
When
it's
the two
frustrating,
guys
but-
ahead of you are the best player on the team and then your biggest summer signing, that is a difficult spot to be in. So
Exactly. So hopefully you guys had some fun. We went on some tangents this episode. Talked a lot of NBA. I mean, the season's coming
2
up
weeks,
in like 2-3
about.
weeks now. So that's getting exciting. Talked about a little QB stock game a little bit. Talking about how terrible it's really gone so far. So hopefully we're going to revisit that the next week or two, make some changes to our
Absolutely.
teams, see how they're doing. Did a little Arsenal and Real Madrid. So yeah, Chad, you got anything?
Nah,
else?
man, just excited. We're finishing up this recording about 2:00 Sunday. Cowboys play the Steelers tonight at 8:20, and your boy KT's been hitting me up all week about it. So I'm just praying for a Cowboys win. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Nothing would really wrap up my week better than Justin Fields losing to the Cowboys at home.
Absolutely.
So, really, really excited about that. Please let us know if there's any topics you want us to cover. What do you think we've been doing? Do you guys like this new format? Or do you like it when it's more regimented? Other than that, you guys have a really, really good day, and we will see you for episode 10.